Hi, I'm Eric Anthony, and I go by the Conjurer of No. This is my first podcast, and it's going to be about paranormal experiences I've had. Right now, I'm 37, and I've had quite a few years to study paranormal things. I've read probably a couple dozen books, including all of David Wilcock's books. I have read The Law of One and a lot of other different interesting books. I have a Dolores Cannon book as well. And if you're interested, leave a comment below and let me know what you would like me to talk about in a podcast. So let's get right into it. When I was 5, I used to sleep in bed at night, and I was afraid of these like shadows that were in my room. So when I was a little kid, I would see dark figures sort of go in and out of my room. And it looked like a very tall person wearing some type of long robe or something. And they had wings behind them. And they kind of would look at me and then walk through the wall, and I wouldn't see them. And it just terrified me as a kid. I told my parents about it recently, and they weren't very surprised at that. One thing that I remember is going to a haunted house when I was a young kid. I was probably like 3 or 4. And it was in a small town in southern Ontario, and it was one of those haunted houses you see at fairgrounds where it's just like the trailer of a truck, and you walk through it, and there's kind of these cheesy jump scares, and so the very first thing terrified me. It was this pressure plate you would step on, and this sort of vampire head. Plastic doll's head would pop out of a cage, and it made this high-pitched whistling sound, and I just screamed. It was a narrow hallway. I couldn't turn around and run away, so I think I was a little bit scarred for life from that, and maybe something happened in my brain that it can give you psychosis later in life when you get really, really afraid. It can be the cause of schizophrenia and other mental illnesses. So I have been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and it may have been caused by that trauma. So then the next thing that happened was when I was age 12. I was walking to school, and it was a wintertime, and all of a sudden I heard this voice inside my head. And it said, "One day God will come to save us." And I was only 12 years old. That's, very young to be having any type of psychosis. It's possible, but very rare. And I didn't really have any other type of psychosis other than that. So that really surprised me. And I hadn't been reading the Bible. I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't religious at all. I was just this atheist 12-year-old kid. And I heard this voice, and it really was a weird experience. It was the first, very strange thing that happened to me. And over the years, a lot of other strange stuff has happened. One thing that happened in my 20s, it's kind of just odd. We went to this graveyard at night, and we were going to go out of our car and explore it. And we rolled down the window to get a better look. And the smell of the graves, the smell of the trees, the soil, it was permeating. It permeated our senses with this stench of death. And we were so terrified that we all just agreed to turn around and leave. So, it was sort of this feeling that you can't describe. It's like something's beyond your control or reach, and if you walk into its territory, then it'll come get you. That's what it felt like. It felt like there was something out there in the graveyard that was projecting this emotion that it was saying it didn't want to be bothered. So then in 2010, I decided to experiment with psychedelic drugs. And when I was on one of my drug experiences. By the way, I wasn't using these as a recreational drug. I was using these as a spiritual tool, which is very important. I don't support, using any kind of psychedelic substances like MDMA, DMT, psilocybin, things like that for recreation. I mean, I have done that and I know what it's like, and it's kind of just a waste of time. But if you use these substances as a spiritual tool, because they can make you see things and experience things that are outside the normal realm of reality that most people will never get a glimmer of. So while I was on one of my very long and intense mushroom experiences, I had this closed eye vision of these two objects in the sky. And it was almost like they were glued to the roof of the sky. It's hard to describe. But in my mind, we were speaking a different language. I think it was like an ancient Egyptian dialect. And what my understanding of it is that these two beings that were these round objects, these beautifully decorated, it was almost like a Fabergé egg, but it was like a sphere. They're beautiful and intricate and very complex, and it was like clearly an intelligent being. They were speaking to me in my mind, and it was the first time I ever experienced any kind of telepathy or psychic ability like ESP. Not long after that, in 2013, I was walking home from a park in the city I live in. I looked up in the sky. It was around 3:30. It was July, a clear day, no clouds in the sky. And I saw this really, really bright golden light in the sky. And it was stationary. It wasn't moving. And I stopped and just stared at it for about 30 seconds. And after that long, I looked down at the sidewalk just to glance and see what was in front of me. I looked back up and it was gone. It was totally gone. There was no one around me on the street, on the sidewalk, to confirm whether or not it was just me seeing that, or if I imagined it. I guess I'll never know. But, people, I think Stephen Greer has a photo of something that looks just like this, but it's more up close. It's like a golden light where he was doing one of his CSETI programs out in the wilderness, meditating and trying to get UFOs to appear, extraterrestrial beings to appear. And so he was able to capture a photo of it. So that did confirm to me that what I saw is something that is real and is also observed by other people who have the intention of making contact with extraterrestrials. So it just makes me think that that UFO that I saw, the golden light in the sky, was something not from this world. So I've also dreamt. I'm an avid lucid dreamer. I have had quite a few dreams with extraterrestrials in them, and they're very clear dreams. It's just like real life, but you're dreaming, is how I would describe a lucid dream. So in one dream, the first dream I had that was with UFOs, it started out in this bus station, and it was like a futuristic sort of, maybe even post-apocalyptic train station, or maybe even something out of like the Half-Life or Half-Life 2 that you can play on the computer, where you start in the train station, and everything is concrete, and there's no store, there's no logos anywhere of any brands. It's all just bare concrete and like steel shutters, and it's very like cold and boring. So in front of me was Barack Obama in a trench coat, and he was dressed up like Inspector Gadget, and he tells me, "I'll take you where you need to go." So we walk over to this teleporter. It looks like a platform with a railing around it, and there's like a little staircase that spirals up to the top. And it's only about 2 feet high. So this is where Barack is taking me, and so I get on top, and there's a slingshot on top of this platform. So I look down at the slingshot, and then I notice all this graffiti writing on the platform in all different types of ink, like marker, pen, pencil, all different things. I didn't get a chance to read it. As soon as I crouched down to look at the writings, I was somewhere completely different. I was on board this flying craft. It was like a triangular room. In each corner of the room, there was this sort of vertical window where you could stick your face up next to it, and it would just be wide enough to see and look down and to see outside the craft. So what it looked like is that I was flying over the house that I grew up in. So as this craft descended down towards the street started looking like this red fort. And it was made of these weird glowing red bricks, and it was kind of like a pentagon with a double wall. So there was this inner part of the fort, like a perimeter inside the outer wall, where all these statues were. They were like these golden statues in my dream, golden statues of warriors from universal history. So some of them, they were all humanoid, but some of them didn't look like people on Earth at all. And sort of, we walked inside this fort, this red castle, and we started having a mock battle. Now, here's the interesting part. When it came time for everyone to get a weapon to fight in this mock battle, what happened is, so on the walls of the fort, there were wood carvings of depicting battles with angels and demons all over this huge fort. And what you could do is you could reach in, like your hand would go into the wall, and you would pull out the weapon that was carved into the wood, and it would become real. So I pulled out a bow and arrow. It was like a tiny little bow, one that you would probably see Cupid with. And so I started trying to shoot these robot statues of warriors with my bow, and it was just falling completely short of any type of like attack. It would just kind of like, the arrow would just kind of fall on the floor. So then what happened is I saw this man walking down a giant staircase. It was like a 2-story staircase. And at the top of the stairs was this arched doorway. And beyond it, you could see the 7 stars of the Pleiades. And so this man was walking down, and he was wearing this white outfit, and he had a giant sword that was like a double helix sword. And then so when he got to the bottom of the staircase, he faced me in battle. So we started having sort of the last fight of the mock battle. And I couldn't shoot him with my bow and arrow, and then the dream turned into slow motion, and then he struck me on the arm. It was just like in slow motion. I could feel the graphite of the pencil on my skin, and then I was on the ground. And so he knelt down and put his hand on my chest, and he said, "Are you ready to go?" And I said, "No, I still have important things to do." And so at that point, the dream got really strange, and I was floating above the ground, and all these other beings, like the statues, these golden statues, were sitting in armchairs, smoking cigars and pipes, and drinking brandy and all different types of liquor. It was like a gentleman's club in my dream. And so I accelerated while I was floating to the speed of light and went through a wall. And as soon as I hit that wall, I woke up out of bed. And that was one of the first dreams I had that was very lucid and very realistic, very long. And I wrote it down. So I did keep a dream journal, and I'm going to get into some of these other really strange dreams. But before I do that, so one thing I want to talk about is with specifically psilocybin mushrooms, or the species Psilocybe cubensis, what you call a magic mushroom. So what it can do is make your brain operate in ways that are not how the brain is normally going to work without these substances. You can get into these states of mind by meditating, but really using a drug as a spiritual tool and theogenic substance like psilocybin is going to change the way you think. And it's going to be it's going to be like opening a door into a new reality. So what happened to me is that I started getting visions. I started getting visions of things like emotion, where I would be with someone and I could see sort of this haze, this colored, patterned or shaped haze that was like their aura. And when they spoke or emoted, and I am very empathetic, so I know what people are feeling, but I could see the emotion. And after the mushroom trip had ended, I realized that I could, with my third eye, still see these emotions, that it unlocked this ability in my brain. Another thing that happened is that I'm part of a group on Facebook. I don't want to say what group it is because I don't want anyone to get harassed, but someone asked, is anybody around that can give me a reading? I want to talk to my parents who passed away. So I had never done that. I had no experience talking with people who had passed away. I was a little bit skeptical of how it would work, if it was, if that was possible. And at the time, I just wanted to see what would happen if I tried it. So I don't want to give too many details away in case this person is listening. But in the end, what I was able to do is get a message and a vision. So I did see someone in my mind, two people that she described as her parents. And we communicated with them. And basically, the person that asked me to do the reading, their mind was put at ease with the message I gave them. So basically, it confirmed to me that there was some accuracy to the communication that was going on in my mind with these supposed parents that had passed on. And what was really interesting is that what they showed me is that they were just two normal earthling people in life, but after they passed on, they became these advanced ascended beings. And they were showing me that they were sort of in the highest realm of existence. And this really surprised the client that I had. I didn't make her pay, but I just call her a client. So that really surprised her. And so that was really incredible, because that was the first time that like I had, just all on my own gone and communicated with a being telepathically. Another thing that I tried, now this is not that interesting for me personally, because I just don't like doing this. So remote viewing is something that has been conducted by different 3-letter agencies. So what they do is they have a technique for relaxing the mind. And what they're able to do, what remote viewing means, is that you use your mind to look at something that is not in plain sight. So what this means is that I would sit in my apartment on my couch and I would relax, maybe lie down, close my eyes, and someone would say, go find your brother. And so what I would do is I would set my intention to view in my mind, with my mind's eye, where my brother is. And then what I would do, what would happen is I would start getting details about what he was around. So let's say he's at a hockey rink. The things you might start seeing while you're remote viewing are ice or glass, like the glass on the rink, the seating, the high ceiling, things that are generally characteristic of the place he is at. And when you're good enough at remote viewing, you can discern the person's location. And this is what different militaries around the world are able to do. They actually train people to do remote viewing, and they are actually extremely good at it. And I think, they should, teach this to more people, because it is just so useful. You can solve crimes with it. You can find missing people. You can find missing objects. it's a great tool to solve a problem, to solve things that are unknown. So let's go back to the dreams I've had. Another dream, this is a shorter one, but when I was a kid, I went to a public school. In my dream, I was at this public school outside in the playground, sort of just a grassy field. And I was standing there, and there was this golden and purple, like violet purple, spiraling energy, this light energy coming from the center of my body and projecting upwards. And when I looked to my right, I saw this tall, gray extraterrestrial. And I asked him a question, telepathically in my dream. I said, "Do you want to see the brightest star in the galaxy?" And so they replied, "Yes." And so I turned my attention back to this energy spiral that was projecting from me. And I was able to look on the inside. So I looked inwardly and then was able to fly up into the center. And that's when the dream ended. If anyone has any insight as to what this dream means or what that spiraling energy is, please just comment below and let me know. Another dream I had that also involved a tall gray alien was the time where I was all of a sudden in the pilot's seat of a super advanced spacecraft, an anti-gravitic craft, where there's like a panel in front of you when you're sitting down, and you fly it with your mind. So I had my hands on this panel and I looked over at my friend who was this tall gray, and I got the feeling that he was smiling, like he was very proud of me, or that they were very proud of me for being able to do this. We were either in front of a blue planet or a blue star. And so that dream ended quickly, but that time where I was dreaming was just so vivid and unbelievable, and the emotion I felt is still deeply embedded in my memory to this day. So I have made contact outside of dreams with extraterrestrials. There was the first time in 2008 or 9. I saw with my mind's eye this. It looked like the Triforce from Legend of Zelda. That's what it looked like, but it was horizontal, and I could tell there was this energy around it. So what I wanted to do is send my energy to this sort of thought form that was in front of me in my mind's eye. So in real life, I stretched out my hand as if to go and send energy to it, just as sort of a thought experiment. As I did that, this short gray alien appeared next to me and moved my hand with his mind. And that really, it put me through a lot of thinking, because I just was so terrified that I saw this being, that they had the ability to do this. And then I walked over to the stove to just note what time it was. And it was, let's say 6:42, I think was the time. So I saw 6:42, and then as I was looking, it changed to 6:43. Okay. Just a second after it changed from 42 to 43, it changed again to 6:44. And I'm honestly still not sure how that could have happened. But one thing I do know is that many people who report paranormal experiences with what they think is extraterrestrials, they also report missing time or missing memories, things like that. So I'm not sure if that's what happened to me. Let me know what you think in the comments. So let's move on to when I started believing in ESP and psychic phenomenon. So when I moved in 2017 into an apartment building, and I used to live in a house. And so I met a whole bunch of people that lived in this apartment complex. It's a really big apartment complex. And so I met this woman. I'm not going to say her name. She is a Reiki master. And what she offered me, this was during COVID, which is currently still going on. She offered me a remote healing session, a remote Reiki healing session. So I was like, sure. She said it was free. And she had me lie in bed, and she was in a different apartment. And I was like, okay, so I am either going to feel something and start believing in psychic abilities, or this is all just a load of hokum and baloney, and, it's not going to confirm my beliefs. So the instructions were to lie down and wait for the clock to hit 6 p.m., and then we were going to have a Reiki session for 45 minutes. So immediately I noticed that there was action going on inside my body. I'm a very aware person, I would say, and I noticed immediately these little, I don't know what to call it. It's almost like having energetic surgery on your body. It's not painful, and it's not pleasurable either. You don't really feel it, but you notice it. And I also noticed that the person doing the Reiki healing was able to telepathically communicate with me. So they were explaining to me what the cause of each injury was. They were telling me the instructions, like, okay, just hold on, just relax. Or I would even say, like, oh, I have to, like, I want a puff of my vape. And they would say, okay, I'll hold on and just go and vape for a minute. So that made me believe. It made me a firm believer in ESP and psychic ability. And it opened my eyes to the value of what a Reiki healer can do, because it really changed my life. After the Reiki, my life completely changed in the way that I was spiritual. My mind opened up to so much stuff. There was so much knowledge that I've gained, and it just accelerated and expanded everything about my spiritual world that I experience. So if you feel like you're in a spiritual slump, and you're maybe having some symptoms of a spiritual struggle, try Reiki. Seek out a Reiki healer. Ask for a remote healing session. Go to a Reiki master, someone who's done remote healing before. I highly recommend it. Find someone with a good reputation, though. And then the last part I want to talk about is someone that I met who is an experienced astral projector, an astral traveler. So what astral projection is the ability to have an out-of-body experience that's within our control. So what this means is that you lie down and you start meditating. And usually what happens is your body will start vibrating. You'll feel these tingling sensations. And what you're supposed to do is picture a rope in front of you. And with your spirit body, you grab the rope and pull your spirit out of your physical body. And then what you're able to do in your spirit body is go and travel through all the different dimensions and experience the universe as a spiritual being. So I've never been able to do this. I'm more of a lucid dreamer and remote viewer and clairvoyant. But one of my friends is extremely good at astral projecting. So what I would like to do is, in a future podcast, interview this person and get their story. So look forward to that on the next podcast. My name is Eric Anthony. I go by the Conjurer of No. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, hit that bell if you want to get notified of my other podcasts. This is going to be my thing for now, so expect to hear a lot more podcasts on the way. I'm the Conjurer of No. Thank you, stay safe, and don't forget to call your mom.